Hello, everybody. Hey. So, everybody's, if you're not here, you lost out because it was Chick-fil-A today and there was an extra 4 spicy chickens today. So, next time, we'll add more. If there's more demand, we'll get more spicy chickens. So, that's all. I'm done. No. So what is, hey, I'm curious, has anybody used Grok, the AI? Have you used Grok? You haven't? Have anybody used Grok? It's amazing. It's amazing. And I haven't used the one, what Musk calls the unhinged version, where it goes off and cusses and doing all that stuff. It'll talk to you, and it's just like, it's rude. It's like Musk himself. So anyway, but there's a deep search version on it. It is amazing. Like it'll crank for 3 minutes, and you'll see where it's, well, I tried that, but that, this, and that. So it's for deep research and stuff like that. It's pretty cool. So anyway. And if you get an X account, it's free. You get a free X account, that's free. So anyway, has nothing to do with mortgages, but I thought I'd mention it. So what's going on in the market? What are you guys seeing?
Things are being sold.
Things are being sold. I like that.
People are buying stuff. People are getting through. Now that we're through the holidays, through January, February, people are coming around and wanting to list more houses and stuff. So
cool.
It's picking up.
Cool. So warmer weather maybe is starting to get people to thaw out. Cool. So what are you seeing up there in? Well, you're everywhere, but how's the mountain?
Mountain City.
The city and the mountain.
Honestly, I haven't been doing much at all in Mountain City, but overall things have picked up a lot finally. Like Clay, the last few months of last year, everyone was just hiding from us basically, and now everybody's talking.
Everybody's hiding from us. So. Okay, that's good. Cool. Anything specific going on? How about you? Now that you're in the room, so what is going on in real estate in your world? Yeah, pop the wheelie there on that chair.
Good. Very busy.
Selling, buyers, sellers, everything. Okay.
Mostly a few buyers.
Listers last. So that's
yeah.
listers last. So that's the mantra I heard when I got in here.
Yeah, but it's still good. Like some houses I have that are just sitting a little bit longer. Like they're still being shown, but then they'll kind of do like a period where no showings, and then one will pop up. So it's kind of just, I guess, hit or miss, but it's still going. Like there's still lots of showings.
Those houses more like.
Well, there's
like
one
needing
that's
updating or newer?
No. There's one that's new construction that Haley and I hosted an open house that we've had barely any showings. There's 4 other listings in that neighborhood, and it's a D.R. Horton neighborhood, new construction, blah, blah. So that's very interesting that there hasn't been anything. But I just had a showing on it yesterday, and I was very interested. So it's like out of the blue, but it's been on for almost 2 months, and we've only had 4 showings max and 2 open houses. So
this is a new construction that you're listing that's not built by D.R. Horton, or it is?
It is.
Oh.
D.R. Horton.
Okay.
Where is that on?
Okay.
It's in Piney Flats. It's the Cliffs at Boone neighborhood, and there's 4 other listings in that neighborhood.
So I'm curious about that. So you just approached them to do an open house for them, or?
No, it's my listing.
Okay, so but D.R. Horton owns it.
Yeah, it's been lived in for a year.
Oh, okay,
So
that was the part I missed. Got it.
Yeah.
No, that's the part I was like.
Newer construction.
Got it. Okay, all right.
About a year old.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, cool. So, all right, anything else?
That's still enough for you?
They're not gonna make it out, so.
Oh yeah. So how about you, Mrs.? What are you seeing in real estate?
Well, I do my very best to stay out of
All right, cool. So anybody have a current mortgage challenge? Like that stump the chump right here. See if you can stump me on a challenge. Anything going on that's...
Are all modular homes now like conventional FHA? Do you have to have a structural engineer report now with?
It should only be government loans. It should be only FHA and VA that require. Now, what happens sometimes is if you have a conventional, if there haven't been any modifications to the house, then you're okay. But if you have, they built on a deck or they did something, then they have to, the structural inspection has to make sure that it was done properly and it didn't compromise the integrity of the place. So most of them are going to have a deck, so that may trigger that. So, yeah.
So with FHA, you have to have a structural.
Yeah. So, and I've thought about some of the things you can do to from a listing standpoint to make sure things like on a manufactured home are make it easier to sell, part of that would be getting it detitled, right? That would be, it does limit, you can't go back. Once you've detitled it, you can't go back. So I don't know that that's a negative, but you could do that, and you could also get some of those inspections done, right? And just say, hey, everything's done. And we've made sure, and now somebody comes in, they don't have, there's an expense to that, but it also is one less hurdle for somebody to go through and close quicker, because you don't have to go through that, so.
What about land and construction loan? Do you do that, right?
Yeah.
Is there a certain time period for when it has, construction has to start?
So we're talking about a land home package, and so we can do them where somebody already owns the land and says it's either there's a note on it or it's paid for, and I want to buy a house and put it on there. So we can do that with either a manufactured home, modular home, or stick built.
What about, they don't want a month, they want you to build
like a stick, what I would call a stick built.
Yes.
Okay. So typically our money is best for 12 months or less, right? And so it gets painful if you go over 12 months. So that should be fine unless they're building something that's significant. There are some McMansions out there. They'll take a year and a half, 2 years to build. So, and those are probably best suited for a local bank that has the appetite for taking that on. We can do a land home package that is like there's one closing, and so we buy the land, or we encumber the land, and then we provide draws through the process. And then once it's done, we don't have to do permanent financing. But if somebody's gonna perhaps take longer, 12 months or longer, then we probably do a two-time close. So the beauty of a one-time close, you don't have to requalify. So if you lose your job and you just built this house, you can still handle it, but you just don't qualify, then that's not a good thing, right? But if you do a one-time close, then you don't have to worry about that. But a two-time close, we're a month out, we start working on, okay, let's refresh the documents, let's make sure that we'll do the long-term financing.
So if you don't qualify on the second close, then you have to sell it?
Yeah, you gotta come up with something, yeah, so that's that's, obviously it's a risk. So, from a builder standpoint, it's kinda nice to have it all done, because you're gonna get your final draw. But if something happens and they've lost their job, or somebody's disabled, or something happens, then,
So could the builder take out a lien?
I'm sure they would be, yeah, they would, and then they would have to be compensated, but again, you just wanna avoid that at all possible,
Right.
so.
Okay.
So, I don't know, is that helpful on the
Yeah.
construction side? Cool. So I was gonna talk about preventing deal failures today. So, I'm gonna keep one of these for myself. No, pass these one. So, I think there's some that pass down through there. I'm not good. There we go. So, when I was, one of the things that when we looked at the survey that I did a little bit ago, about what are some things that you guys would like to know more about. One of them was, how do we prevent some of these deals from falling through? So obviously I'm only looking from the standpoint of the money side, but there are some parts of this that I can help. So when I look at it, is that the first thing is just a good, strong qualification. And perhaps I'm coming from that's what I do, but I think that the key is just have a good, strong qualification, and have somebody that's going to do the work to make sure that they are qualified. So, and then when you drill down into it, the hardest thing to do for us is figure out the income, right? So the income, typically people know how much money they have. So they get the 4 C's of qualifying. You have cash, credit, capacity, and collateral. So cash, you kind of know how much you have. Credit, we pull the credit, we know what we have to work with. We have a credit score, we have a minimum monthly payments. So we kind of know what that is. Capacity is income. So the capacity is the hardest one, because, if you're a salary employee, you make, $120,000 a year, $10,000 a month, that's easy, right? And you've been there forever, that's easy. If you're a W-2 employee and you're an hourly, then that's pretty straightforward, unless you get overtime, things like that. It gets a little bit more complicated, and then it gets more complicated into, okay, I'm commission only. You lovely real estate people and your commissions and multiple businesses. So it just becomes harder and harder. So the key is, for me, is just making sure that that whoever you're working with does a really good job about the income. Everything else is really straightforward. So, and because if we're looking at what's the ratio of somebody's debt to income, well, we know the debts. All we have to do is pay the money and pull the credit. And by the way, just so you know, a credit report's about $50 these days. So it's, yeah, it used to, when I got into business, like $12 or $9 for a credit report. So my credit report bill was $2,600 last month.
Wow.
So, I mean, but that's like you all complain gas prices have gone up. Well, I've got to go, what am I gonna do? Not drive to a property? So, but, no, just surprised. So, anyway, so the when we're looking at, I think the key is that we understand that the difficult ones are the ones that have income that is variable or they're self-employed. So there's ways to do that. I mean, it just sometimes takes time. So if somebody says, hey, I want to show this guy called me up and he wants to look at property tomorrow, and he's gotten so big. My goodness. So I want to go look at a property tomorrow, and he's salaried. Then that's easy. I can do that one. Probably not even talking to him how I would. But then, I'm on commission. Okay, well, I am going to have to think about this a little bit. I need some documentation to make sure that, and I'm looking for 2 years history. I'm looking for trends. I'm looking for, and so what I try to do in that situation is give you a red light, green light, or yellow light. So, red light is, I can't figure out his income, but he's got a 412 credit score. So don't waste your time, hustling to show somebody a property that's there. Green light is, their salary, they can do anything they want, right, within reason. So you can go on. The yellow light is, the guy's self-employed. It sounds good, but I would probably show a property because I don't want to miss that opportunity because maybe I haven't met the guy yet and I want to do this, but I need some time. I'm going to need tax returns. We can do the calculations usually relatively quickly, but the problem is that it's hard for the client to get us the stuff. I have to have 2 years tax returns, and I need to have all the schedules. I need to look at all those different things to be able to tell. And then sometimes people have multiple businesses, and that gets complicated, and so that can take a little while. So the key is having the patience to be able to, we want to move quickly, but we don't want to be wrong. So I think in terms of in the context of preventing deal failures, that's what we're looking for. So we've got to get to that answer as quick as we can. So, and I think that one of the keys is just doing that heavy lifting up front to make sure we don't miss that stuff. The next one is property conditions. So you already know this, but maybe some don't. But when it comes to the property conditions, we're generally speaking, conventional is the most forgiving. FHA is more difficult, and VA is usually the hardest. Everybody knows that VA wants to have a handrail. It's an 1/8 of an inch step. We want to have a handrail soon. So I get it that they want to be, they want to have a property that's safe for the veteran, but you can expect some of those things. So what I see a lot of time, so in terms of what's killing the deals is when somebody isn't paying attention. You're looking at a property and maybe you don't just have the experience to say what's going on, and I don't know if this will go. I'm sure a lot of you all will ask each other or ask Will, hey, will you think this will be FHA? Well, one of the things sometimes I can tell, sometimes I can't tell. So I've got my underwriting manager that's responsible for appraisals. What I'll do is I'll just send her, I'll say, hey, would you look at this Zillow listing and just tell me what you think might be an issue? And she'll give me a quick response and say, well, I meant like one I just saw the other day, I was concerned about some things, and she said, well, there's a pool there, right? And it looks like it's in disrepair. So I didn't even see that, right? So I thought it had a nice cover on it, but when I went back to look at the pictures, it had a tarp and it had cinder blocks all around the perimeter. I'm like, oh yeah, and it sunk down, and yeah, okay, all right.
Around here, that's a pretty nice cover.
Pretty nice.
Right?
Not sure what was underneath it, but that's the type of thing that if I'm always trying to help prevent the borrower from spending money on an appraisal on a house that they can't buy. Now sometimes you just don't know, right? Because it's subject to the it's an opinion of value, and it's also subject to what's customary in the area. It's like, well, can I get a house with, that has a spring water? Well, is that the only source of water? Well, maybe. I think that was your place, right? Spring water. No, it was a cistern. Yeah. So what happens with that? And I think I checked on it. It was like, well, is it customary for the area? Right. It's not always yes or no, because the guidelines cover from Alaska to Hawaii to Florida. So in Alaska, it might be common to have a burn barrel in the middle of the igloo. I don't know, right? But in Tennessee, it's not. So I have found that there's some of those are really not hard and fast rules to say, well, like one of the things that I used to say all the time is that you have to have a heat source for every room in the house. Well, FHA doesn't say you have to have a heat source for every room in the house. Meaning, I thought the interpretation was you had to have a vent, or you had to have baseboard or whatever in that room. And if it's not customary, or if it actually says you need to be able to heat all the rooms. So if you have, I'm thinking of a house I'm looking at recently. It had a gas fireplace in the middle, and it had a gas fireplace upstairs. And so the recommendation was, well, how many BTUs does that put out? Can it heat the whole house? Okay, well, it might be cool at the extremities, but that may work. And so I'm learning as I go through this too. It's like, oh, I thought it was a hard and fast rule, but it's not. But some of those things just, we learn by. Well, there was one. Actually, it was a conventional out in the middle of nowhere in Virginia, and it didn't have it had a wood stove in the house. I'm like, this thing will never go, right? But it went conventional, didn't have to add a heat source. Like, well, it's customary in this area. Okay, that's pretty cool, right?
Has anybody seen that property in Johnson City? Mallory, you probably showed it once. That was up on the top of a mountain in Johnson City in the back, and it was like half.
Yeah, done, and it's been on for a long time.
Yeah. They didn't have a water source, but it's also in Johnson City, so I don't think people were able to get financing because it was in Johnson City.
Probably.
But it was up on the mountain, and they couldn't tap in without it being a fortune, so they just had a cistern. It was like a new construction build type home or remodel. And just buy it.
Yeah. Wow. So those two are the big ones. So first, make sure they're qualified. The second one is have some idea what's going on with the property. Good to see you. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
And then the last one is how can we save a deal? If we prevent the deal, we can save a deal maybe. So when it comes to the condition of the property, that's where renovation loans come in. So I've got one right now. So it's the house is pretty rough. Most of it's cosmetic, but but there moved some walls. There's concern about structural. There's some different things. So you don't find an acre and a half and a 1,400 square foot house and some outbuildings and things like that for a couple $100,000. So I have a client that's under contract for $165 on the place, and they feel like that they can get it to where it's livable for $25,000. Like, I don't know if they can or not. They had a contractor look at it. They're like, okay, so saving that deal. So it could have been that something was found out in the appraisal process that needed to be fixed, and the seller didn't have the capacity or the want to fix it. Well, we could flip it over to a renovation, and we could fix those things after the fact. So that's a way to fix a deal. In their case, it was very clear that it wasn't going to work. Right? I could see in the pictures where ceiling tiles had fallen down, and they had furring strips were exposed, and flooring was a mess. There were several different things. But it was an opportunity for them we could do renovation. So in their case, they're doing FHA 3.5% down, and they're qualified to about $210,000. They got it for $160, and so they think that they're going to be able to buy it and refurbish it to the point where they can do a lot of the work themselves, because there's certain minimums. It's got to be safe and sound and sanitary. So that's what we're going to do with the contractors, take care of the basics, and then if they want to redo the kitchen later, they can do the kitchen later. So that's just a way, my thought of a way to, we're trying to save deals. The income stuff is the income. It's, I do look at it from the standpoint, okay, well, I miscalculated the income. Well, or they just don't qualify. Well, do you have a family member, a parent, or a sibling that has the capacity and the want to co-borrow with you, then we can look at that. And we look at some other ways, but again, the key is to doing that early, so we're not getting under contract and then trying to figure it out. But, let's see. Yeah, just more prep equals fewer deal failures, more commission in your own pocket. How about that? That's it. That's all. That's everything. Any questions?
I actually had one.
What?
Alright, so I've got this listing that I feel like it would only go conventional and or cash, obviously. But like my biggest theory is it was kind of like it definitely wasn't ever built up to code because it was like family kind of built it as they went. It's on an acre though, and the price is getting a lot of attention, but I don't know if it would go FHA because there's like some subfloor exposed in the living room, and like some of the stuff they re-engineered it to turn it into like a bedroom into like a closet, so now it's like one bedroom, and then there's no gutters. So I'm thinking, well, that's going to be an issue. The deck probably is going to be an issue, I would say, but I don't know, like if I'm just, because like the kitchen has like tile and all that, like the living room and the bedrooms and like still stuff, like plywood. How would that would it be possible to do like an FHA if they did like an allowance or like for like flooring or something?
So the allowance.
Can you kind of
Oh, okay. So we're talking about a house that has some issues that probably wouldn't allow it to go FHA. For example, subfloor with no carpet or floor coverings on top of that. Can we do an allowance so that can we do an allowance so that we could do it FHA? But the problem with that is that it has to be done before closing. Right now, there are provisions. We'll do something called an escrow holdback sometimes. Yeah. And the challenge with an escrow holdback is that there's a very small item that can be done quickly and inexpensively. We're going to do that, and we're going to close on the loan, but we're going to have this work done in the next 10 days because the seller either can't do it or won't allow it to be done before closing. So, I mean, conceptually, you could have money put in escrow, and you have carpet, coming in like next week. That might work as an escrow holdback, but what happens to the lender is that if the repairs or the updates aren't done in a timely manner, it's not a sellable loan. So it's always that risk, sellable, the term we would use for it being that it's not eligible to be sold on the secondary market. So all of the secondary market loans that we do, they may not be sold, but they need to be eligible to be sold on the secondary market. So because we have to go back and have the appraiser look at it to say, yep, it's all done, it's got the right pictures in there, now it's sellable. We may not sell it, but we'd have to be sold. But if they're like, well, we just didn't get around to it, or it's like, no, you have to do this. And so they've been burned a few times, so it's like we're being a little bit more careful with that. But one of the ways that we would look at that is say, well, we could have a renovation flyer that would go in there and say, hey, you buy this house for, what's it on the market for? 102. I mean, there aren't many houses that are livable for 102, but if you put 50 in it to have a nice house, I mean, a house that's been updated a little bit for 150 is still amazing, right? So
our problem is it's sitting on Little Germany where half the road is still being reconstructed.
Well, we could put that into there, right? We could part of the road construction.
Let's do it, man. $500,000 for road construction.
So the key with that is that the borrower has to qualify for the higher amount. And one of the things that people don't like about the renovation loans is that they have to be done by a licensed contractor. So, I'm good, I can do that work myself. Well, I'm sure you can, but we can't count on that. So they're like, I can do that for a third of the price. Well, okay, but you can't buy it. So is it still worth it if you're paying contractor prices? Is it still worth it after the fact? Like if you're buying for 102, you put 30 in it, is it gonna be worth 200? Okay, or just what I've told my people is like, hey, yeah, you're frustrated because it's gonna cost more than you think, but when you're done with it, what are you gonna have? And then go look at all the houses for 200 out there, right? It's like, you're not gonna have anywhere near that, or you're not gonna get the way you want it. You pick the colors, you pick the flooring, you pick the cabinets, whatever you're gonna be doing. So, but that's just a tool, and we don't use it that much, but it's a tool to say, well, I really want this house. We love the location, but we can't, we don't have cash to buy it. So let's do a renovation. So it's a bit of a process, but it's moving along. So is that helpful?
It is, yes.
So anything else?
Dan, looks like you got something to say.
First time home buyers.
First time home buyers, yes. We love them.
Any advice?
Any advice? Well, first time home buyer, I mean, technically a first time home buyer is somebody that hasn't bought in the last 3 years, right? So I've got somebody right now that's 74 years old and he's a first time home buyer, even though he's bought and sold several houses. Usually the connotation is that they don't have much money to put down. And so actually I've got a new program, it doesn't have a name right now, but it's a down payment assistance program that will allow me, it's an FHA based down payment assistance program, but there's no maximum household income. I can go with a higher debt to income ratio. What I'm doing right now is like 54% debt to income ratio. Not that you should, right? So I always tell people, what's the catch? Well, it's, actually I'm wondering the same thing because I had somebody that started out, we were going to do THDA. He told me that one of his debts that he had was paid for by his son. It was a cosign thing. Come to find out that it wasn't because we couldn't prove it. So now his debt to income ratio was too high for Tennessee Housing Development Agency, THDA. So when we put that debt in, his debt to income ratio went up. So we flipped over to this program, and it's good market rates. The second mortgage is a 10-year fixed. That's 2 points higher than the base rate. So if you get a 6.5 for the FHA loan, then your second, that's either 3.5 or 5%, is 2 points higher than that. So 8.5, right? And you're paying it off in 10 years. Debt to income ratios are high. I can go down like a 580 credit score, which is, THDA is 640 on the minimum. You can have a maximum of 45% debt to income ratio.
580 on an FHA too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now you got to remember that 580. There's a reason why they're at 580. So there may be reasons why they're at 580 that I can't do it, but there's more to it. But that's not the only reason why we can't do it. Is where we're at. I've actually done a 550 credit score with 10% down. But in that case, the lady made a ton of money. She just didn't pay her bills on time.
Be like an auctioneer. 480. I got a 480. Right?
I got a 480. Yeah, we're gonna act like you didn't even hold that up, sir. Nope, no, I didn't even see that. I can't see that low. So, but anyway, anything else? Okay, big question. How many more spicy chickens we need next time? We only got 5 this time, and they're all gone. So let me know.
Thank you, Tim.
You're welcome. Oh, look at that. Time for the.
Hey, Tim.